Hello, everyone, and good day to you. I would like to present to you this in creating inclusive classrooms and effective, differentiated, and reflective practices here by yours truly, Jerlyn May Atupan. This presentation is for general education teachers, especially for international teachers to be aware about inclusion practices in US classrooms and for US teachers who are seeking professional growth. So my vision and objectives. This presentation is to address my fellow colleagues and international teachers who graduated outside the United States and those who would like professional growth and who do not feel they have the understanding and knowledge of or about inclusion and an acceptable confidence level in implementing inclusion. So today, my objectives are to share to you the following. What is inclusion? The goals of inclusion, principles of effective inclusion, benefits and importance of educating students with special needs in the regular classroom, universal design for learning, and the types of learning ability, ideas to implement inclusion, safe and productive learning environment for all, and collaborative strategies to be able to have a successful and meaningful work with the students and our school with us working. So let's start. So what is inclusion? All right. Inclusion is a philosophy that brings diverse students, families, students, educators, and community members together to create schools and other social institutions based on acceptance, belonging, and community, according to Coston, Theoharis Ball, Coshier, and Dim Outridge in 2001, and Jiang Rico, Doyle, and Suter in 2012. Another meaning of inclusion is that it recognizes that all students are capable learners who benefit from a meaningful, challenging, and appropriate curriculum delivered within the general education classroom and from university design, evidence based, culturally responsive, and differentiated instruction practices that address their diverse and unique strengths, challenges, and experiences. So this is also from the same um, researchers, but in 2013 and 2014. So as we go along, I would like everyone to better understand why we need to know inclusion. All right, as fellow educators, we are needing this information for our professional growth and also to expand our knowledge about how to be culturally responsive and in in teaching inclusion into our classroom. The goals are to better instruct our students. Number two, there will be more time on task for our students and they can learn more if they learn by doing. They're on task. Number three, there will be fewer interruptions in the class if we have this inclusion. Number four, we teachers have closer monitoring of our students. Number five, and the students will have high self-esteem because they belong to the class, regardless of their race, nationality, their difficulties, um, gender, socioeconomic status, and learning disability, they are included in the classroom. They have the sense of belonging and more risk taking on the teacher's part as well as some students. However, there will be fewer labels, as we all know, if we have this inclusion, because everybody treats equally, because everybody um, can learn the same way. All right, not the same way, but everybody is capable of learning. We have different styles in learning. The students have different learning styles as well. So teachers have to consider that. Then teachers have also the teamwork if they collaborate each other so that there will be inclusion and successful implementation of the plans. And also there will be ownership, not just for the students, for the teachers, but all the team and the school as well. Right. So, what are the principles of effective inclusion? So, first thing here, as I have mentioned a while ago, that all learners have equal access regardless of their learning ability, their race, their linguistic ability, economic status, their gender, ethnicity, learning style, cultural and religious background, family structure, sexual orientation, and country of origin. So, in other words, we think, and for effective inclusion, we have to think that all learners have equal access to learning. Number two, we educators, we need to be sensible and accept individual strengths, challenges, and diversity. As we all know, um, we have students from different races, background, religious, cultural backgrounds. They have learning styles. They have language ability that are not the same, or their family structures are not the same at home, their sexual orientation, and even their country of origin. So we need to be sensible and to these individual strengths. Number three, um, educators need reflective, culturally responsive, and evidence-based practices to differentiate their assessment, teaching, and classroom management practices to accommodate individual strengths and challenges, and to provide all students with meaningful access to and progress in general education curriculum. We need to reflect after our days teaching as educators. I've been teaching for 14 years and counting, and it is my goal that I will be reflective, to reflect on what I did during the day, how are the students doing, look at their student mastery tracker, and to look at their progress, how can I improve more. So we need to be reflective. And another thing is culturally responsive. Okay, we need to um, consider that each students have different cultural backgrounds. They have different linguistic ability. Some students can learn more English quickly. Some do not speak um, much English. Some would have even zero English at all. So we need to really be culturally responsive and even differentiate our instructions. And we need to do our evidence-based practices. Number four, we need to establish, to have effective inclusion, we need to establish a community based on um, collaboration and communication among our educators, their professional students and families and community agencies. So we need to establish a good community. We need to be public speakers. I mean, our public relation should be great communication skills. All right, so here benefits and importance of educating students with special needs in the regular classroom. This is important. uh, Educators, we need to realize that each of your students, even everyone, has gifts, talents, and challenges. So we need to consider that. Number two, we need to consider learning to move beyond the stereotypes of people with disabilities. Please don't be stereotyped on the people with disabilities. Number three, we need to develop a better understanding of citizenship for all people. Number four, we need to appreciate that there are similarities and differences among all people. Not all people are the same. We cannot expect that the student can learn more, learn best if this one, but of course we have to do our classroom expectations, our classroom routines, so we have effective classroom management as well, because that will also affect how students learn. Another thing is working on the sense of their own shortcomings and educating students with special needs increases the level of comfort among all people serving as role models. So we educators, we are role models. So um, we need to be careful of the way we speak, the way we act, the way we say, do things, right? And we need to solve real life challenges by finding best approaches to problems faced by our students. We need that one. So as I learn more about inclusion, okay, there are also this word universal design for learning, in which we think what, as educators, what are we here to do? Then we identify our potential barriers to learning, or students' potential barriers to learning, so we can go dig deeper and we can um, reach out to them. They can help them. Then we need to identify the universal supports that we need and the guidelines to design learning. We need to teach, evaluate, and revise our teaching strategies or methods so that we have effective teaching. And what do we know about learners and context? So there's a quick tip here on how we're going to use UDL. So you can look at this link, https semicolon slashes www.theudlproject.com. You can look at this and you will see a lot of information about UDL as we go along. So universal design of for learning recognizes networks. What does it mean by that? Is the what of learning. Okay, how do we gather facts and categorize what we see, hear, and read from our students? How we identify letters, words, or an author's style are recognition tasks. So I know our students have present information and content in different ways. So that's, we need to recognize that. We need to recognize that students also learn in different ways, but we need to really encourage them, facilitate their learning as educators. We are the facilitators of learning. We are not just teachers, we are facilitators of learning. Next one is the how of learning. We call it strategic networks. So we plan and perform tasks, how we organize and express our ideas. So just like writing an essay or solving math or problem are strategic tasks. We need that. Then the last one here, we need to um, know the why of learning, or the effective networks. So how learners get engaged, how do they engage in our learning, in our class activities? Do we need to just discuss all the time? I know in what I am practicing at school and with the guidance of my school, and also what I've learned from our course, that course subject about inclusion by Dr. Bell, is that we need to engage our students and stay motivated. So we need some class activities that really will motivate them to learn and to actively learn. How they are challenged, so they like that, excited or interested. So these are effective dimensions that we need to consider in terms of universal design for learning. So stimulate interest and motivation for learning. And there are more ways, guys, about universal design for learning. So here we have the types of learning disability. We have um, reading based learning disability. Why do I have to discuss this to you? Because in my experience, I didn't know much about other learning disabilities. So we need to open our mind and to consider that in our classroom there might be some students who have learning disability and we don't understand, and we just judge them, the way they speak, the way they act, the way they do. Like, Miss, why? I don't know about this. I don't know how to pronounce this, or I don't know how to. So we need to consider them. Do not act right away, or charge our students right away that, oh, they know, or something like that, because they might have some learning disabilities. So first one here I have on the list is the reading based learning disability, or we call dyslexia. So what are these? These students have difficulty in identifying letters and their sounds. The reading rate are quite slow. Their listening, their vocabulary, and reading comprehensions are have difficulty. They have difficulty on this one. Next one is another learning disability is reading based learning disability, or hyperlexia. So there are two, dyslexia and hyperlexia. What about hyperlexia? So they have advanced reading abilities coupled with significant difficulties in comprehending what one has read, using expressive language, and socializing with others. Right. So that is it. They have advanced reading abilities. However, they have difficulties in comprehension. So we have to really understand our students. Another one is late emerging learning disabilities. These students have fluent reading in the early grades, just like first grade to third grade. However, when they during the fourth grade and upper grade, they struggle, okay, for reading comprehension, and it becomes an essential aspect, because this is an essential aspect of learning. That's late emerging learning disabilities. Another thing, learning disability is the written expression based learning disability, or we call dysgraphia. What's that? Um, when some students have difficulty in idea generation, we try to, sometimes when I ask students, like, we have to give time to them, to not um, push directly to answer. Like when you ask your student and then they cannot answer, you have to give wait time and think time for them. So this written expression, they have difficulties in idea generation, text organization, how to structure the sentences, the vocabulary, their spelling, their grammar and usage, right? Grammar usage. And another thing is mathematics-based learning disability, or we call dyscalculia. So in this, students have difficulties in discriminating numbers, symbols, and signs. They have difficulty in identifying, understanding math terms, or learning number facts, performing computations, and solving problems. So I can see some of this in my students, even though I teach science for more than 14 years, but I still can see, because science and math are related. And in sciences, I also teach some calculations, especially in our experiments, scientific notations, and all. So some students have this, so we need to understand them, we need to guide them. Right. Next is nonverbal learning disability. This disability have difficulties processing nonverbal, visual, spatial information or communication. So um, interpreting body languages and context of linguistic interactions. So we need to understand them as well. So how do we understand them? As we go along, I'm going to give you some inclusion ideas for this learning disabilities. So first thing here, ideas to implement inclusion. So this is our main goal. We need to treat our students others, like other students, and avoid being too protective and underestimating their abilities. That's what I said a while ago, and limiting their participation in certain activities. So sometimes we need to give them classroom jobs, or if they misbehave, we have to reprimand them, encourage them to participate in all classroom activities rather than excusing them. Sorry, it should be excusing them for assignments, and give more time to complete them. Sometimes we need to, okay, I know this is your time, but there are some students with learning disability that they need more time, call it accommodation. Right, number two is to implement inclusion effectively. We need to not hesitate to ask our students to repeat themselves if others do not understand their comments. Sometimes students comment to you, to your teaching, to other students about our lesson or science concepts, for example. So ask them, ask them to repeat what they have said, right? Next one here, to effectively implement inclusion, we need to learn how to lift, position or reposition and transfer students who use wheelchairs. We have those kind of students. We need to know this one, um, my fellow educators, because this is important, especially this new generation, right? We need to teach students to reposition themselves as well and learn how to push wheelchairs. So we need to help each other. Next is number four, give students 2 copies of books and materials, one set for use in school and the other set for use at home. So for this one, for inclusion, right? Um, as of this time, because of the pandemic, I don't give books of copies at home. However, they have the online textbook that I give them for sciences. They can access it. I also have PowerPoint presentations and PDF that I posted in the um, Canvas learning platform. And then give students copies of class notes, yes, and assignments, and easy access to personal and classroom supplies. So in my classroom, I have one space for those classroom materials, and they can just borrow pens or pencils there, and once they're done, they're gonna return it if they need one, or some notepads that they can use. So you need to put that there, and notes as well. I require my students to have their notebook with them, even if it's pandemic. I have them write some notes on their notebook. Especially we have our science lab, we need to have our laboratory notes and data, observations and something. Then plan students schedule so that they can move from class to class, right? When the hallways are less crowded. So that's it. Another ideas to implement inclusion is to help students who exhibit oppositional and defiant behaviors, that who can succeed. So first one here is to minimize resistance behaviors related to learning difficulties by implementing appropriate instructional accommodations and curricular enhancement and adjustments. So another thing is they have to identify and minimize the events that trigger students' oppositional and defiant behaviors. This is for those students who have um, oppositional and defiant behaviors. Another thing is um, they need to use learning activities that are motivating and instructionally appropriate for students and celebrate their success. And build possible and caring relationships with students. Also, to provide students with opportunities to make choices, even solve problems and offer feedback. Some of our students need to choose even their projects. I give them um, science projects. So it's not just only one, but they can also like choose whether they make brochures or project or Google Slides, or they have some choices or posters to have like how to do 7 R's. We use reduce, recycle, and all of those in science classes. So the next one here that I have are competences to cultural competence, teaching and learning by Irish and Scrub, 2012. So teach learning strategies and foster their use across the curriculum. This is how to have cultural competence in teaching and learning. Say, so if you want to be culturally responsive, we need to respect others. Okay, respect begets respect. So if you, our students will know that we respect them, so they will respect us as well. Next one, culturally competent teaching and learning involves accommodating individual learners. So we need to accommodate our each student, individual learners, because they have different learning styles. Next is they require the use of intercultural communication skills. So we need to communicate to them, okay, interculturally. I know some students may have some difficulty in um, like learning more about English language or something. So we need to really know about this one. Then um, culturally competent teaching and learning requires focused activities. You need to give class activities that are focused and internationally structured environments. Next, so ideas to implement inclusion with Tourette syndrome. Right, so we create situations that allow students to leave the room for short periods of time before their verbalization or movements or noises became uncontrollable. Be patient and tolerant to them. Give students with this Tourette syndrome a little more room around their work areas by seating them so that no one is behind them. Give students enough time to respond and avoid responding to students or providing them with unnecessary prompts. Use alternative assignments to minimize stress of students with this syndrome and offer activities to develop students' social and friendship making skills. Another one, we for inclusion, we need to respond to what the students say. This is so important, what the students say rather than how they say it, right? Your body language and facial expression, we need to understand them. Sometimes they just say words, but inside them, I know they have something inside that they don't want to say it, right? So next, make typical eye contact with students and pause a few seconds before responding to show them how to relax and slow down the pace of conversation. Eye contact is so important to our students, and we pause for a few seconds before responding, right? Eye contact is so important, my fellow educators. And next is we need to say calm and do not hurry, interrupt or complete students' sentences when they speak. Sometimes I do this one, and I learn to be effective teacher in inclusive classroom. We need not to interrupt our students' sentences. However, we can give them some um, you can start some sentences so they can add more. Just give them some guidance. Do not criticize or correct their speech or force them to speak in front of others. Right, so that's our inclusion if they, right. However, no opt-out strategy is that if the students say, I don't know, if you ask them, said, teacher, I don't know about this, you can help them, facilitate their learning, help them by, there are many ways how this is done, the no opt-out strategy. You can either ask one student to answer and then what ask them again, or you can ask them or tell the answer by yourself. So there are many ways actually. Next is teach all students how to respond to classmates who have expressive language difficulties. And all those, how to be safe and productive in your classroom, in a learning environment, not just for you, for the students, for all. So we need to build our community from the first day of class up to the end, the last day of a class. And then so that the students will know, they recognize their work, we need to post their student work. Next is we need to have non-negotiables. Okay, non-negotiables meaning if you have this classroom rules and regulation, no shouting in the classroom, you have to do that. No cell phone in the classroom, that should be non-negotiables. As we are doing our no cell phone classroom policy. And at the beginning of the class, I collected my students as cell phones so they won't be disturbed during the class time. And at the end of the class, I'm gonna return it to them. And we have started this, and I hope this will continue. And it's effective. Students can do the work. They don't just look at like, there is also psychology in using the cell phone. You keep looking at your cell phone. Even I can observe adults like even me like we need to control this one because once we are on a cell phone we keep looking at it and it disturbs for students as well. They won't be focused in their lesson. Number 4 is admit when you don't know. Sometimes some students will ask us, right, Miss A, what is this? What does a law of conservation of mass mean? Or if you don't know, then you admit it. Or there are some multiple choice questions or ACT Aspire practice tests that um, you don't know, or something like some situations. So admit that you don't know, but you try your best to research it and let the students help research as well. Next one is read with your students. Sometimes we need to read with our students. Even I'm an international teacher, and my students are native English speakers. However, some words they just made it like science words, so they don't know how to pronounce it. So we need to help them as well. So number 6 is remain calm at all times, whatever happens. Okay, let's be calm. There are some situation we need to be calm. 7, take every opportunity to model kindness, and the students will just follow. Just be kind. Number 8, we need to circulate around our classroom, not just sit on our teacher's chair. We need to circulate around so we can monitor each of our students. And if there are some grudges from one student to another, we need to address it early on so it won't pile up and it will not add up to the student stresses. We need to solve these issues right away. Next, number 10 is write with your students. Sometimes we have a poster project about climate change or like how to save the environment, how to recycle. We need to do the poster. So we need to help, right, with our students, draw something with our students as well. Then Number 11, model vulnerability. And number 12, follow through with consequences. So I know in my classroom, I always have those consequences on the board with the classroom rules as well. So they know that one that they have to follow. If we need to be consistent as well, okay, with our consequences. Then um, smile often, use every opportunity to model patience, give kids a chance to problem solve on their own. Sometimes um, they can solve that by their own. Laugh with their students. Sometimes there are some students that tell stories about their house or their experiences. You can, if it's funny, then you can laugh with them. Um, Options, offer options, right? And do you want to? Well, you can ask them, right? Keep the vibes and it's good. Keep the vibes good and sit with your students. Also, you can also incorporate art and music because it feeds our soul. So the last thing that I have to do is collaboration strategies. We need to collaborate because of this inclusion, exclusive classroom. We need to collaborate with our team, our department, our school, our administration, with our students, our parents as well, to share the school or company's mission and vision over and over again. We need to communicate um, to others, to our parents, our stakeholders, our expectation, right, for collaboration. And we need to define and communicate our team's goals. We need to highlight individual strengths, promote a community working environment so that it will be harmonious to everyone. Okay. Honest and open communication. We need that one. So just keep, okay, asking them, okay, what do we need to do? Asking our students, our fellow educators, or our co-teacher if we have, what do we need to do to improve this? Or um, open communication. Creativity. We need to encourage creativity, share knowledge, insight, and resources, lead by example. Yes, this is very true. If you want to lead, if you want to be a good leader, you must be a good follower. So whatever the rules and regulation is, like no cell phones in the classroom, so you do not use cell phones too in your classroom. Like no eating in the classroom, so you don't eat also in your classroom. So just lead by example. And then sometimes, right, you just don't sit in your office or in your classroom. You have to go to other teachers as well and talk to them, collaborate with them, invest in collaboration tools, and celebrate and reward successful teamwork. So, my last words before I end, according to Alexis Herman, inclusion and fairness in the workplace is not simply the right thing to do, but it is the smart thing to do. Inclusion and fairness in our workplace, with our students, with our parents, with our co-teachers, with our admin team or our subordinates for the administration team. Okay, it's a smart thing to do if we do fair and inclusive classroom. And according to Helen Keller, alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. So we need to help each other. Thank you for listening. This is Jerlyn Mayatupan reporting. Thank you so much.